I want to talk about Wei Wu Wei in relationship to the martial arts and in art in general. I think it's greatly misunderstood, particularly when it's just defined as not doing. It's doing without doing. So what that means is that, or the way that comes about, is that you've practiced something so much that you are no longer consciously doing it. There's no longer a subject-object relationship between you and what you're doing. And that can happen in any sport, any physical endeavor. It can happen as a musician. It should happen as a musician, at least. And it's universal. So I've spent a long time working in television, particularly sports television. And I was working with a very famous Philadelphia basketball player. One of the most famous. And we were having lunch together one day. And he knows that I'm not a sports fan. I work in sports all the time, but I don't follow them. And I said to him, I think I understand how you are on the court. And he's like, man, come on. Because I'm not a basketball player. And he says, go ahead. And I said, okay. I said, this was at the end of his career in the late 80s, when you're going down the court, you have no sense of where you're going or what you're doing, but at the same time, you're completely aware. And you just move, and you put it in the basket. And then later you say to yourself, I don't even know how I did that. I said, but when you look at the young guys out there, you see them enforcing themselves upon the court and other people, pushing their way through a lot of energy and aggression. And that eventually, of course, wears down. I said, but you see yourself as this kind of flowing aspect. That's where you're in the moment or in the zone, and they're not. And he goes, man, how could you know that? He says, you're absolutely right. He said, half the time I'm unaware. And I look at a replay and say, whoa, I didn't know I did that. I said, because you have mastered the art. You've mastered basketball. I said, but that's true for all arts. And then I explained to him that, it's Chinese philosophy had talked about this for ages. But if you're practicing scales on a piano or guitar or whatever instrument, you practice and practice and practice. But practicing those scales is never going to give you inspiration because it's a conscious effort you do. But if you practice to the point that you become the guitar, you become the notes. This is an expression, no rider above the saddle, no horse below. It's all coalesces as one expression. That's Wei Wu Wei. That's to do without doing. And the way you get there is by practice. To the point, you set up the conditions to overcome the barrier between self and others, sport, crocheting, whatever. You keep doing it to the point that it's you become it. So it's can't be forced. You set up the conditions and you do it enough so that it works. And there are people who spend their entire lives practicing and never becoming. So it's not a given that it's going to happen. But for the greatest in different disciplines, that's what they do. And in my life, in music and martial arts and in entertainment and all that, we all know when we see somebody who just does it, who just plays, who just sings, they make it look effortlessly because they put a tremendous amount of effort into it. So again, Wei Wu Wei is not this simple, not doing, I'm just going to not do. No, it's just to do it to the point that you've mastered it, that you become it, so there's no distinction, subject-object duality, between that person that's doing it and that which is being done. That's Wei Wu Wei. Okay?